Hello, good afternoon and welcome to Midday Prime. This is the show where over the course of nearly an hour we get you all the latest that is happening in the country and the world. I'm Gautam Roy. In this particular show we'll tell you all about how India is making rapid progress as far as the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic is concerned in terms of making it wane, and also a major induction that's happened in the BJP with a view to the upcoming elections in Uttar Pradesh next year. But first, as always, the big news of the hour. Daily cases of COVID-19 in the country are less than 1 lakh for the second consecutive day. Recovery rate goes up to 94.55%. Restrictions eased in various states after improvement in COVID cases. Lockdown ends in Bihar. Only night curfew will continue. Corona curfew ends in Uttar Pradesh. Unlock process begins in Rajasthan as well. Major setback to the Congress party. Former Union Minister and two-time Lok Sabha MP from Uttar Pradesh, Jitin Prasad, joins the Bharatiya Janata Party. Says the BJP is the only national party in the country. Monsoon arrives in Mumbai a day earlier than usual. Heavy rains in Mumbai and surrounding areas with strong winds. Local train services affected after waterlogging on tracks at many places. The Met Department forecasts heavy rains in parts of Mumbai as well as Raigad, Thane, Palghar, Pune, Nashik and Marathwada in Madhya Maharashtra. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar leaves for Kuwait on a 3-day visit. The minister to hold high-level meeting with Foreign Minister of Kuwait, Sheikh Ahmed Nasser Al Mohammed Al Sabah, also to address the Indian community in Kuwait. In Uttar Pradesh, at least 17 people killed and over 6 others injured in a road accident in Kanpur. The collision between private bus and tempo in Sachendi area. Prime Minister Modi expresses condolences, announces an ex-gratia of 2 lakh rupees each from the Prime Minister's National Relief Fund. And at the French Open, Alexander Zverev and Stefanos Tsitsipas will face off in the first semi-final in the men's singles. Tamara Zidansek and Slovenia and Pavlyuchenkova of Russia in women's singles also enter last 4. Well, time now to begin with the big news. Well, India has reported 92,596 daily new cases in the last 24 hours of COVID-19. The country has recorded less than 1 lakh daily new cases for the second consecutive day now. This is a result of sustained and collaborative efforts by the centre and states as well as union territories. India has been witnessing a continuous fall in active caseload. The country's active caseload today stands at 12,31,415. The caseload is below 20 lakh for 9 successive days. A net decline of 72,287 cases has been witnessed in the last 24 hours, and active cases are now only 4.23% of the country's total positive cases. India's daily recoveries continue to outnumber the daily new cases for the 27th consecutive day. 1,62,664 recoveries were registered in the last 24 hours. 70,068 more recoveries have been reported during the last 24 hours as compared to the daily new cases. Out of the people infected since the beginning of the pandemic, 2,75,04,126 people have already recovered from COVID-19. This constitutes an overall recovery rate of 94.55%, which is showing an increasing trend. And the cumulative number of COVID-19 vaccine doses administered in the country has also exceeded 23.9 crore today under the nationwide vaccination drive. 27,76,096 vaccine doses were administered in the last 24 hours. A total of 23 crore 90 lakh 58,360 vaccine doses have been administered through 33,44,533 sessions, according to the provisional report that is coming till 7 in the morning today. And a total of 19,85,967 tests have also been conducted in the last 24 hours across the country, and India has conducted over 37 crore tests so far. And while on the other side, testing has been enhanced across the country, a continued decline in weekly case positivity has also been noticed. Weekly positivity rate is currently at 5.66%, while the daily positivity rate stands at 4.66% today. It has remained less than 10% for the 16th consecutive day now. Now, another update on the vaccination front. Well, to ensure that the COVID vaccination certificates of beneficiaries are error-free, a special feature, Raise an Issue, has been added to the CoWIN platform. Now, users can make corrections to name, year of birth and gender on their COVID vaccination certificates if there is any inadvertent error. Arogya Setu has shared information on the steps to get to the vaccine certificates on its Twitter handle. Excuse me. Let's also take a look at these simple steps that are needed to be taken to make these corrections. Well, step 1 is go to cowin.gov.in. Step 2, sign in by entering your 10-digit mobile number. Step 3, enter the 6-digit OTP which will come in on your cell phone. Step 4, click on verify and proceed. And step 5, go to account details. Step 6, raise an issue is to be noted. Raise an issue and where you can make changes as well. Now, it's to be noted that citizens can edit their certificates only once and that information will be final on the certificate. Now, as the number of COVID cases continue to show a decline, states have started to ease lockdown restrictions as well. In Uttar Pradesh, COVID curfew has been lifted completely from all districts, including Lucknow. However, night curfew from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and weekend curfew will continue in all districts. Shopkeepers, meanwhile, have expressed hope that business will be back on track within a few days. District Magistrate of Lucknow has expressed hope that people will follow all guidelines of unlock as well.
दिन का कोरोना कर्फ्यू था, इसको चूँकि एक्टिव केसेज जनपद लखनऊ में 600 से कम है, इसको लिफ्ट किया गया है और जियो के अनुरूप ही समस्त कार्रवाइयाँ होंगी। लेकिन एक मैं आपके माध्यम से सबसे अपील करना चाहूँगा कि कोविड-19 के संक्रमण को रोकने का सबसे प्रभावी उपाय हमारा कोविड एप्रोप्रिएट बिहेवियर है। 100% मास्क का प्रयोग करें, 100% सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग और सैनिटाइजेशन जो है प्रोटोकॉल उसका अनिवार्य रूप से प्रयोग करें। बिना कारण के अकारण अपने घरों से बाहर नहीं जाएं, कहीं पर भी भीड़ न लगाएं और बहुत ही ज़रूरी है कि बचाव के लिए अपने अपने टाइम स्लॉट्स पे अपना रजिस्ट्रेशन कराएं और टाइम स्लॉट्स के अनुरूप अपना वैक्सीनेशन जरूर कराएं।
And Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath meanwhile reviewed the prevailing COVID situation in the state. He also held a meeting with the officials of Team 9 in the state capital. Let's now get you more on India's battle against the second wave of COVID-19. My colleague Meghna Dev joins us from the national capital. Meghna, if I were to ask you the kind of decline that has been witnessed in fresh, daily new cases, which has been below 1 lakh for 2 consecutive days now, what will be the process to be followed now as far as these lockdowns are concerned? We've already seen some states relaxing it. Excuse me.
Has begun, but we must not forget it was just 7th of May when the country saw about 4,14,000 cases, and it's just a bit over a month that now we are seeing cases less than a lakh, daily reported new cases. But definitely there is a 79% decline. If we look at the data, there is a 79% decline in from the highest peak to the cases till now. So the decline has been really steep. It has been a quick decline, but definitely we must not lower our guard down just because of that. The unlock is also happening in the phased manner, just like it happened in the earlier lockdown. We saw the unlock in the phased manner. But somewhere night curfew is still in place, weekend curfew is still in place. Shops and offices have been allowed to work. Offices have been allowed to work 50% capacity. Private offices, shops, especially in Delhi, opening on odd even basis. So I spoke to some of the market associations. They said odd number shops are going to open on odd days, and even number shops are going to open on even days. But definitely, people are having a bit of difficulty because the metro has reduced its frequency. But still, this is just to just for the benefit of the commuters, so that there is not much of overcrowding. Also, the intermittent closing and opening of gates to regulate the crowd at the metro station is taking place. So all the things have been put in place. Unlock is definitely commenced on in a phased manner. But swimming pools, gyms, movie theaters have not yet opened. So we'll have to see that how the unlock, further steps of the unlock take place. But besides that, when we also talk about the COVID situation, I already told you we saw about 4,14,000 cases on 7th of May. Then we saw about 2,78,000 cases on 19th May. And then there was a steady decline that happened. But now the complete push, as we saw yesterday, some new guidelines had come. So complete push is now on procurement of vaccines. And when we tell you, we currently have 3 vaccines. We have Covishield, Covaxin, and we also have Sputnik V. But besides that, yesterday also it was said that biological ease vaccine, 4BVax, a very promising, the efficacy seems very promising. So before the DCGI could give emergency use authorization, the government has blocked 30 crore doses. That means about 15 crore people can be vaccinated, and the government is soon going to release the 1,500 crore that they are going to pay for the vaccine, the advance. Besides that, also 100 crore had already been given, and the DBT had been hand-holding. The government had been, Department of Biotechnology and the government had been hand-holding the preclinical and post-clinical trials as well for the Corbevax vaccine. And not only this, the Corbevax, as the experts say, that this might just be a game changer, because this is going to be the cheapest vaccine that will be available in the country, as it is being said as of now. Because other vaccines are mRNA-based vaccines or vector-based vaccines, or inactivated virus vaccines, but this is a vaccine which is made out of the spike protein of the virus. So this might just be a bit cheaper in that sense. That can be said. Biological E already has a legacy of producing vaccines for DPT, and has been giving out vaccines to several countries. So currently, and ZyCoV-D also, when we talk about ZyCoV-D, also might just apply for emergency use authorization in some time, in a couple of weeks, as we can say, because the efficacy data of the last phase trials is still awaited. So after that, ZyCoV-D from the Zydus Cadila might just immediately apply for the emergency use authorization. So we'll have that vaccine as well. So while the government is pushing harder on procuring the more amount of vaccines, we yesterday also saw 44 crore vaccines. The order has been placed. So now we can see more vaccines coming into the loop, more manufacturers coming into the loop. This is only going to accelerate the vaccination drive further, and getting more people vaccinated.
Certainly, and the new vaccination policy where the centre will procure 75% of the vaccines produced, and they will then be given to the state governments. That will also come into play from the 21st of June, which is not too far off. So that will see a further ramping up as well, along with testing. Thanks a lot for the moment, Meghna Dev. Now, moving on, in Bihar, relaxation in COVID restrictions has come into effect from 5 this morning. However, night curfew will continue from 7 p.m. till 5 a.m. next morning. Educational and religious places will remain closed. Online teaching will continue in educational institutions. Government and private offices will function till 4 p.m. with 50% attendance. According to the revised guidelines, all shops and business establishments will open on alternate days from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. Permission has been given for the movement of private vehicles. Only 20 persons will be allowed in marriage and funeral processions. Government and private functions at public places have been prohibited. Restrictions will continue till the 15th of June. Let me now go across to Salman Haider, my colleague in Patna, to find out more about the situation there in Bihar. Salman, just first tell us how has the situation been improving in Bihar, so that the government has now decided that some of these restrictions can be relaxed?
The recovery rate has risen to almost well above 96%, and the infection rate is also somewhere between 1 and 2%. So the government has opened up to some extent. The lockdown has already gone, and only night curfew is going on. And today's situation, if we talk about, I was some time ago, I was at Ashok Rajpath. So there was a huge crowd. The people are coming out, and in fact, people have taken a sigh of relief, particularly the lower economic strata people, as they can now earn their bread. And roads in Patna, that is why crowded today, as many people and vehicles came out suddenly. So it was a jam-like situation, traffic bottlenecks were there. So it was natural as people were confined to their houses for so long, and most of them took the roads for their daily chores, which were pending for a long time. So shops and business houses opened after a long time, and the owners were seen busy in cleaning their wares and shops and merchandise. But many people were seen also without any mask or protection, and some of them have been fined by the authorities.
Okay.
And the authorities have launched a drive for the persons to fine who are out without any mask or protection. Yes.
Yes, these guidelines and these protocols need to be taken very seriously, especially when some amount of unlocking is taking place, and to ensure that this stays the course and we do not have cases spiking again. It's very, very important that people adhere to these COVID protocols. And in terms of the situation in the health infrastructure in hospitals, what is your assessment about that?
Now, as the pressure has somewhat very much eased here, so and cases are coming. For example, in past 24 hours, only 700 and something have come in all across the state. So there are some districts where 2 or 3 cases have come up, new infection cases. So there is not much pressure, and everything is available at present, and vaccination drive is also going on, vaccinated. So the things are going on smoothly here as far as vaccination or the COVID care is concerned.
Yes, and traveling of migrants also started picking up with increased rail reservations. I hope that all precautions are also being taken there. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Salman. Now let's talk about Madhya Pradesh. Well, in Madhya Pradesh's Bhopal, certain relaxations have been given amid low cases being reported. Bhopal District Magistrate Avinash Lavania has issued orders, and set of new guidelines have been brought out as well. Now, according to these new guidelines, curfew will remain in force only on Sundays, whereas earlier the curfew was applicable on Saturday and Sunday. Apart from this, night curfew will also remain in force from 8 p.m. till 6 a.m. According to the new order, hair salons can also be reopened. However, schools, colleges, coaching institutes will remain closed. Shopping malls, swimming pools, cinema halls, clubs, gyms, theatres, picnic spots, tourist places will also remain closed. The Karnataka state government is also considering initiating the easing of curbs in 4 or 5 phases now. The unlock process will begin from the 14th of June. The government has taken into consideration the Technical Assessment Committee report, which had suggested that a phased manner lockdown relaxation would be a wise move, as Karnataka has seen a drastic rise in positivity rate as cases were reported high during April and May before the lockdown was announced. In the first phase, the government may extend the present timing of 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. to buy essentials up to 12 noon. Malls may also be allowed to open for 4 hours. However, night curfew after 7 p.m. seems evident. A total ban on rallies, fairs will also remain in place. According to the health bulletin by State Health Department, the cases in the state are steadily declining, and Bangalore urban, which reported over 25,000 cases per day in the past weeks, is now down to about 2,000 cases per day. Karnataka government also aims to further control the spread of infections to 500 per day. Again, in the south, the Telangana government has extended the COVID-related restrictions in the state for 10 more days till the 19th of June, amid a decline in the number of coronavirus cases in many parts of the state. The state government has said that a night curfew from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. will continue. Shops and business establishments will remain closed by 5 p.m. However, relaxation in timing will not be in place in Sattupalli, Madira, Nalgonda, Nagarjun Sagar, Munugode, Devarakonda, Miriaguda assembly segments due to a rise in COVID-19 cases in those areas. Now, the Indian Army remains deeply committed to shouldering the challenges faced by residents of border areas, especially during these testing times of COVID. The Army is helping the Medical Department of Baramulla in its vaccination drive among the people living along the line of control in the Uri sector of Baramulla district of North Kashmir. The Army, in collaboration with civil administration and local medical and healthcare authorities, have organized vaccination camps as well as logistically supported the frontline healthcare workers to carry out vaccination drives in villages close to the line of control. The medical team, with the help of Indian Army, travelled many kilometers to reach these border residents to carry out vaccination. One such COVID vaccination camp was held at Boniar area of LOC in Uri sector of Baramulla district, where the Indian Army helped the medical staff reach these people. The local residents of these villages close to the line of control lauded the step taken by the Indian Army to vaccinate them. Let's now move on to our developing story. Well, the monsoon has arrived in Mumbai and Maharashtra today prior to the average arrival date. Heavy rainfall has lashed Mumbai city and other districts like Raigad, Ratnagiri, Sindhudurg today, throwing normal life out of gear. The IMD issued a warning of a heavy downpour for Mumbai and adjoining areas from the 9th till the 11th of June. And due to heavy rains, Mumbai local train services between Kurla and CSMD have been suspended as water has submerged rail tracks between Kurla and Science stations. Excuse me. Now, due to waterlogging at several places in Mumbai, people witnessed a long traffic jams on Western and Eastern Express highways. Some of the low-lying areas like Marunga, Sion, Dadar King Circle also witnessed waterlogging on roads as well as along residential areas. Let's now bring in Sharma Mishra from Mumbai for the latest updates on the rain situation. Sharma, what can you tell us? How's the situation right now? Because more rain has been forecast at least till the 11th of June.
Yes, Gautam, the situation here in Mumbai is definitely worrisome because more 4 days of heavy rains, heavy to very heavy rains has been forecast. And as a precautionary measure, the state government has definitely announced a lot of measures instructing all the teams to be on standby, including the NDRF and SDRF. But for now, I'll show you how Mumbai is coping up with the situation. This is one of those areas which you've mentioned. This is the King Circle area of Sion Matunga stretch. And this is the main road where all the vehicles, heavy vehicles or any other vehicle, this is the main road where the roads, where the vehicles pass. But you can see this is totally underwater, and 2 to 3 big vehicles, including the trucks and the BST buses and the JCB, they have broken down and they are in the water because they need some mechanic to pull it out. Other than that, we are also seeing areas like Parel, Hind Mata, Kurla, Milan Subway, Andheri. These areas are also suffering for the because of the low-lying areas, and they are facing waterlogging in those areas, and because of that, the vehicular traffic has been diverted. We know for the fact that the local trains have not been opened for everyone just yet, and those people in the essential category, those who are in the medical sector, they are traveling from the trains, but they have taken a hit because the trains between the Chunabhatti station, that is the harbour station, so the water on the tracks have totally submerged, tracks have been submerged in water, and that is why the trains are not running on that section, that is harbour. Other than that, Central Railway also, between Kurla to Sain, the entire tracks, you cannot see the tracks, it is totally underwater, and it is like a mini pond over there. And as a precautionary measure, trains have been totally shut from in that area, and also originating from the CSMT till over there, because you cannot have people traveling on those lines. Other than that, the BST buses, the Mumbai BST buses, which are carrying people from one destination to other, they have been diverted to various routes, because all these areas, which are the low-lying areas and the waterlogging has happened, those areas cannot be taken, and that is why the routes have been diverted. Every time we see that these things happen, there is always a good picture as well, and as you can see, there are kids in these localities who are actually enjoying in this flooded water, in this waterlogged area, and they are happily going inside the water, and they are having a good time. Apart from that, those people who have to travel towards that stretch, they are waiting, thinking how to go about it,
Right.
and then they are actually going in that water. The water going ahead is still waist deep, so you can imagine how much trouble the Mumbaikars are taking. And every year we know that the administration, the BMC takes various measures, but each time heavy monsoons happen, heavy rains happen, the same picture arises in Mumbai. And also because we are knowing that it is the high tide which is going on currently, and 11:50 a.m. was the time when the high tide had happened, and because of that we are seeing the water is not actually able to go towards the sea,
Right.
and the water level in these waterlogged areas are actually rising only because those manholes are throwing water back. Once
Okay.
the high rise passes out and the low tide begins, we can expect that this water would actually recede and give some respite to Mumbaikars.
And what are the authorities saying, Sharma, in terms of what they're doing to ensure that life comes back to normal as quickly as possible?
Well, the BMC had boasted that they have completed all their cleanliness work, including those nalas where the silt and everything has to be taken out, because the gutters could be free and the water could actually pass. But we can see how much work has been done, because every time this happens, every time heavy rains happen, this waterlogging issue arises, and that's why we can say the work that has been done may not be adequate. Apart from that, the Hindmata area, which we know that is also another area, another painful area, there the authorities have built an elevated road between two bridges, so that the vehicular traffic could be working, that could not be halted, and that is actually going smoothly. But
Okay.
the down part, the below part, the people have to walk, that is worrisome, that is painful. And yes, we already mentioned that the forecast has already been given for 4 days that Mumbai and adjoining Konkan areas may receive heavy to very heavy rainfall, and that is why NDRF team, SDRF team, the administration, they have been told to keep a check on the coastal areas and those people who are located on the coastal areas, and if need be, they may be relocated. And also people who are in the dilapidated buildings, they have been told that if the situation is such that you all feel or the administration feels that this could be a risky situation, they also have to come out of the building, and they also will be relocated to avoid any loss of lives.
Right, Sharma. Well, it's very important to stay safe in such situations, and let's hope that this ordeal of this region, including Mumbai, does not last too long. Thanks a lot for joining us for the time being. Now, the Met Department has issued a warning of heat wave in many districts in Rajasthan. Ganganagar recorded the highest temperature of 45 degrees Celsius in the last 24 hours in the state. According to the Met Center in Jaipur, the temperature has exceeded normal levels by 2 to 3 degrees Celsius in the state in the last 24 hours. Now, due to the formation of a pressure area over western Rajasthan, the IMD also said that dust carrying winds from Rajasthan and Haryana will continue to blow over the city, which will keep the pollution levels high as well. And this situation will remain for the next 3 to 4 days. Time now to move on to National Prime. Let's talk about the BJP's big catch for former Union Minister and two-time Lok Sabha MP from Uttar Pradesh, Jitin Prasad, joined the Bharatiya Janata Party today in the presence of Union Minister Piyush Goyal at the BJP headquarters in Delhi. Jitin Prasad's induction into the BJP is seen as a massive gain for the party ahead of the assembly polls in Uttar Pradesh. Prasad had won from Shahjahanpur and Dhaurhara Lok Sabha constituencies in the 2004 and 2009 Lok Sabha elections. Addressing the media, Prasad said that BJP is the only party which is truly national and others are limited, being regional. He thanked Prime Minister Modi and Home Minister for extending support and said that the BJP is working towards nation building.
मैंने पिछले कुछ वर्षों से 8-10 सालों से महसूस किया है अपने अनुभव में, राजनीतिक जीवन में, लोगों से मिलकर भ्रमण करके देश भर में, कि अगर आज कोई इस देश में असली माने में कोई राजनीतिक दल है जो संस्थागत इंस्टीट्यूशनल दल है, वो भारतीय जनता पार्टी है। बाकी दल तो व्यक्ति विशेष और क्षेत्र के हो गए, मगर राष्ट्रीय दल के नाम पे अगर आज भारत में कोई दल है तो वो भारतीय जनता पार्टी है।
So it can be safely said that it's a big loss for the Congress and gain for the BJP. But if one were to look at it in a more granular manner, let's go across to Vishal Baristo, my colleague. Vishal, to what extent, does the BJP itself feel that the addition of Jitin Prasad will help in its quest to, get control of Uttar Pradesh again in the elections that are coming up next year?
Well, a very good afternoon to you, Gautam. Yes, indeed, it's a huge advantage for BJP because remember, when we talk about the young Turks of Congress, now those, some of them, they have already left the party. Jyotiraditya started off, Sachin Pilot also tried, he's back, but still all is not well with Ashok Gehlot in Rajasthan and now Jitin Prasad. Jitin Prasad is also, let us remember, not forget that Jitin Prasad is one of the G23 members who wanted an overhaul in the party. And as you heard Jitin Prasad saying that Baki Partiya Vyakti Vishesh, they are personality or person driven. So definitely was not happy with the leadership of the Gandhis. And just before UP election, it is going to give BJP a huge fillip because the COVID situation had given Congress some time to attack on the Modi government, but when they are losing their own leaders, and Jitin Prasad is one of the young Turks of Congress party, when he joins the UP elections, then definitely it's going to be advantage BJP. And last July he had formed the Brahmin Chetana Parishad. He is a leader of the Brahmin community and a big leader, and he also carries the legacy of his father. So definitely Congress, it's a disadvantage or rather loss to Congress, who could not read the writing which was very clear on the wall, and now it is Jitin Prasad, and you never know what would happen because my sources are telling me that even Sachin Pilot is not at all happy with Ashok Gehlot. Now UP also shares its borders with Rajasthan, and we all know what happened in Rajasthan. And Sachin Pilot is also saying that even 10 months after he was forced or rather convinced to join Congress and not go away from the Congress, all the promises that were made to him, they have not been fulfilled. Hemaram Chaudhary, a very senior Congress leader and also MLA from Gudamalani in the Badmer district, has also resigned. So it is UP, obviously because the elections are there, but Congress overall is facing a very, very tough situation, and we all know why.
Yes, certainly it's been tough for the Congress in Uttar Pradesh, and it keeps getting tougher as well. But what we heard about, how does the BJP intend to use Jitin Prasad's services now?
Well, as we all know that Jitin Prasad had formed the Brahmin Chetana Parishad last July, and he is a dominant Brahmin leader. So definitely the Brahmin votes, which are already the vote bank of the Saffron party, would be strengthened as far as the UP elections are concerned. And all those who were questioning the leadership of Yogi Adityanath, it's a huge setback for them, because when leader like Jitin Prasad joins BJP, then definitely in that area of Lakhimpur Kheri. This man and his father, they have their clout. Though his father is no more, but they enjoy their clout. So definitely, when people like Jiten Prasad, who is a young politician and who was also the Minister of State for HR in UPA too, when people of their credibility, they leave Congress and join BJP, then definitely it gives a huge advantage to the Bharatiya Janata Party, just ahead of you peoples.
Certainly,
Gautam?
certainly, Vishal. Well, we'll see how things go for the BJP and the Congress and Jiten Prasad as well in the coming days. Thanks a lot for joining us for the time being. Now, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar left on a 3-day visit to Kuwait this morning to further cement bilateral ties. The minister is visiting the Gulf nation at the invitation of Kuwait Foreign Minister Sheikh Ahmed Nasser Al Mohammed Al Sabah. During the visit, the External Affairs Minister will hold high-level meetings and also address the Indian community in Kuwait. He will also carry a personal letter from Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the Emir of Kuwait. The year 2021-22 marks the 60th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic relations between India and Kuwait. India is amongst the largest trading partners of Kuwait, and Kuwait is a major supplier of oil to India. Earlier, Kuwait Foreign Minister visited India in March this year. Both countries had agreed to establish a joint commission at foreign ministers level during the visit. Let's get more on this with my colleague Abhishek Jha. Abhishek, if I could come to you and ask you, just give us an assessment of the kind of ties that India and Kuwait have had, which have been further cemented perhaps in these tough COVID times.
So, of course, Gautam, India and Kuwait, like most of the other Gulf nations, they have had this traditional trade tie in terms of petrochemicals and all crude oil that is coming from Gulf countries, including Kuwait. And also Indian workforces and a lot of laborers working in various industries of Kuwait, infrastructure industry, petrochemical industry, or all sort of things. So this has been a traditional trade-off between the two sides so far. But now the time has changed, and so the requirements have also changed. India, as a emerging power, needs more allies in various geographies of the world, and Kuwait and like various other Gulf countries who have been oil-rich so far, and who think that the oil is not going to be an energy security or as an income guarantee for a few more decades. They are now trying to diversify their own portfolio in terms of investment, trade, and other areas of economic growth, so that they can have a future secure for their own people. This is where the new dynamics come into play, where India can supply with more trained, skillful manpower to Kuwait, and Kuwaiti government can have more investment opportunity being explored in India, which India is also eyeing for, because as of now, to have our emerging economy supported, we need a lot of investment coming from foreign destination, and with such a trustful and mutual respect and political relation, a warm relation that we have had in this region of geography, this can be a situation where both countries would like to strengthen their cooperation in future also.
Certainly, and the engagements of the External Affairs Minister also indicate the same.
Of course, in External Affairs Minister will be while meeting his Kuwaitian counterpart, he'll also be delivering a special letter from Prime Minister to the newly elected, newly appointed Emir of Kuwait. And this is also first visit of External Affairs Minister ever since the ruler in Kuwait has changed, and this also holds significance in that aspect. Also, External Affairs Minister will be addressing Indian diaspora, because we know that almost 1/5 to 1/4 of Kuwaiti population is purely Indian. So many people have been for decades going on to have job opportunities in Kuwait. Many have actually settled there, but still a lot of income is also something that every month comes from Kuwaiti people who have been Indian people who are working in Kuwait and sending their remittances back home.
Yeah.
There's also a kind of economic aspect of this whole visit. So while External Affairs Minister will be addressing the diaspora, he will be of course underlining the trust and mutual respect that Kuwaiti people have showcased to Indian population there, and Indian population who have been sensitive to Kuwaiti culture and various aspects of their life, and how we can actually strengthen it further, and in what all area we can actually utilize this trust and mutual social respect for each other. That is something that will be the focus of external affairs ministers, address to Indian diaspora in Kuwait.
All right. Sheikh, thanks a lot for joining us for your views on what this visit might mean for the two nations of India and Kuwait. Thanks. Okay, now back home in Uttar Pradesh's Kanpur, at least 17 people were killed and more than 6 others injured in a collision between a passenger bus and a loader in Kanpur on Tuesday evening. Many of the wounded are said to be in a critical condition. The accident took place at Sachendi near Kanpur when a Shatabdi AC bus of UP Roadways collided head-on with an oncoming JCB loader and turned turtle. President Ramnath Kovind and Prime Minister Modi have expressed condolences to the near and dear ones of the victims of the Kanpur road accident, and they've prayed for the early recovery of the injured as well. The PM also announced an ex gratia of 2 lakh rupees each from the Prime Minister's National Relief Fund for the next of kin of those who have lost their lives due to the tragic accident in Kanpur. 50,000 rupees have also been announced to be provided to those who have been injured in the incident. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath also announced an ex gratia of 2 lakh rupees to the families of the deceased. He has also instructed senior police officers to reach the scene immediately and provide all possible help. Now, Indian scientists have found a promising technique for early detection of development or strengthening of tropical cyclones in the atmospheric column prior to satellite detection over ocean surface in North Indian Ocean region. A team of scientists from IIT Kharagpur with support from the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India under the Climate Change Programme devised a novel method using eddy detection technique to investigate the formative stages and advanced detection time of tropical cyclogenesis in the North Indian Ocean region. The research was published in the journal Atmospheric Research recently. The method developed by the scientists aims to identify initial traces of pre-cyclonic eddy vortices in the atmospheric column and track its spatio-temporal evolution. They used coarser grid resolution of 27 kilometers for identification and finer resolution of 9 kilometers to evaluate the characteristics of eddy vortices. The study was conducted with cases of 4 post-monsoon severe cyclones and 2 pre-monsoon cyclones that developed over North Indian Ocean. Early detection of tropical cyclones has wide socio-economic implications. So far, remote sensing techniques have detected them the earliest. However, this detection was possible only after a system developed as a well-marked low-pressure system over the warm ocean surface. A large time gap between the detection and the impact of the cyclone could help prepare activities. Well, it's time now on Midday Prime to get you all the updates from the business and economy world. Let's go ahead on that. And we've got Tanvi for all the business and economy updates.
Thank you, Gautam. Up first in Business Prime, the World Bank has projected India's economy to grow at 8.3% in 2021 and 7.5% in 2022. The growth rate forecasted for India for 2021-22 by the World Bank is an upward revision from its January forecast of 5.4%. The World Bank, in its latest issue of Global Economic Prospects report, which was released on Tuesday, noted that in India, an enormous second COVID-19 wave is undermining the sharper than expected rebound in activity seen during the second half of 2020-21 fiscal year, especially in services. The World Bank said in 2020, India's economy is estimated to have contracted by 7.3%, while it registered a growth rate of 4% in 2019. The World Bank added that in 2023, India is expected to grow at 6.5%. The Washington-based global lender in its report said that the global economy is set to expand by 5.6% in 2021, its strongest post-recession pace in 80 years. And the domestic stock market suddenly gave up all their small gains in afternoon trade amid volatility in afternoon deals on Wednesday. So the Sensex at the BSE had dropped 450 points or 0.9% to 51,826 a short while ago. And the Nifty at the National Stock Exchange had lost 126 points or 0.8% to 15,615. In the broader market, the BSE mid-cap and small-cap indices had dropped 0.3% each. The top index gainers are Power Grid Corporation, NTPC, SBI Life Insurance and Coal India with gains of between 1 and 2.2%. The top index losers so far are Adani Ports, Shree Cements, Larsen & Toubro and Maruti Suzuki with losses of between 1.6 and 3%. Most other key Asian markets also fell on Wednesday. Japan's Nikkei 225 index lost 0.4% on profit booking in shippers and semiconductor stocks. South Korea's Kospi lost 1%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng index fell 0.2%. But China's Shanghai Composite Index gained 0.2% as investors lapped up factory gate prices data in May that saw their fastest annual pace in more than 12 years, implying signs of steady global economic recovery. And as the world over, investors keenly track the journey of bitcoins. The El Salvador Congress on June 9th approved a bill making the world's largest cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, legal tender in the country. El Salvador is now the first ever to make Bitcoin legal tender. Its adoption as legal tender will go into law in 90 days. The law passed with majority vote of 62 out of 84. The move came after the Central American country's president, Nayib Bukele, last Saturday said that he would send a bill to Congress regarding the same. The president added that the proposed bill could transform the remittance-dependent economy. Back home at the forex market, the rupee had depreciated 13 paise against the dollar in early trade on Wednesday amid dollar strength overseas. Later, the rupee had weakened 8 paise to 72 rupees 97 paise against the dollar in afternoon deals. And at the multi-commodity exchange, gold had weakened just 16 rupees to 49,143 rupees per 10 grams. Silver had lost 19 rupees to 71,250 rupees per kilo. And global crude oil prices rose for a second straight day on Wednesday on signs of strong fuel demand in Western economies and as the prospect of Iranian supplies returning faded after the US Secretary of State said sanctions against Tehran were unlikely to be lifted. So Brent crude oil rose 37 cents or 0.5% to $72.59 a barrel. US crude advanced 39 cents or 0.5% to $70.44 a barrel. Analysts said improved demand outlook appears to be bolstering crude oil prices amid successful vaccine rollouts and the summer driving season in the United States and Europe. So with that, it's a wrap in Business Prime. Back to you, Gautam.
Well, let's first take a look at the COVID-19 updates that have been coming in from across the world. Well, the world continues to battle the COVID-19 pandemic. So far, more than 17.47 lakh people have tested positive for the virus globally. As many as 15.84 lakh patients have recovered from the virus. The deadly virus has so far claimed 37,62,000 lives worldwide. The US continues to register maximum number of COVID-19 cases in the world. More than 3.42 lakh people have been tested positive for coronavirus in the country, while deaths so far due to the virus in the US have surged past the 6.13 lakh mark. But people in France will be able to enjoy indoor dining and staying out until 11 p.m. from today for the first time in months under the new relaxation of COVID rules as cases fall and vaccinations rise. In a key new phase of the program relaxing the lockdown, diners will be able to go inside cafes and restaurants, terrace consumption having already resumed on the 19th of May. The overnight curfew will now start later at 11 p.m. instead of 9 p.m. before being dropped entirely if all goes to plan on the 30th of June. Australia's second largest city, Melbourne, will exit a COVID-19 hard lockdown as planned, although some restrictions on travel and gatherings would likely remain for another week. After 2 weeks in a strict lockdown that forced people to remain home except for essential business, Melbourne's 5 million residents will get more freedom to step outside from Thursday. However, people must stay within 25 kilometers of their homes, officials said, in an effort to stop transmission during an upcoming long weekend. There will also be a total ban on house gatherings and masks will be mandatory indoors. And time now to get you some sports updates as well. And we've got Suchitra for all the sporting updates.
Start with our Tokyo Olympic countdown. In our Tokyo Olympic countdown, today we'll take a look at young shooter Saurabh Chaudhary's profile. Tokyo bound Saurabh Chaudhary is a big hope for medal for India.
And effort बहुत है, मेहनत करता है.
Extremely focused, and I see great things happening for him in the future.
Looking at Saurabh, a child born in a peasant family in village Kalina in Meerut on 12th May 2002, no one could have imagined that growing up, this boy would bring about the golden period for India in the world of pistol shooting.
जी हमारे गांव के पास में गांव है, वहाँ पे शूटिंग रेंज है, वहाँ पे हमारे गांव से बच्चे जाते थे, तो उनको देख के कि ये शूटिंग करने जाते हैं कि चलो मैं भी देख लेता हूँ एक बार चल के कि कैसा है, तो वहाँ पे जाके देखा, ट्राई किया, अच्छा लगा, तो वहीं से स्टार्ट हुआ है।
शूटिंग के बारे में उसने बहुत जिद करी, उसके पापा बहुत मना करते थे, इनको पढ़ाई डिस्टर्ब हो जाएगी बेटा, ऐसा नहीं। वो कहता मैं पढ़ाई भी करूँगा पापा, मैं शूटिंग भी करूँगा।
Amit Shioran, the coach at Binoli, and the training methods in his shooting academy were both quite unique.
तो मैं क्या करता हूँ, ईंट से कराता हूँ, ईंट उसके हाथ पे लटका दिया, इस अगले हिस्से को पूरे को रिलैक्स, सारा का सारा नर्व सिस्टम यहीं से है, इस हिस्से को बड़ा संभाल के रखना होता है पिस्टल शूटिंग के लिए। जब मेरे पास सौरभ आया उस समय मेरे पास 3 शेड के नीचे मेरी रेंज थी, उस समय ये इस तरह की सीलिंग लाइट वाइट कुछ नहीं थी। तो गर्मी के दिनों में जब पूरी वो 3 शेड 10-11 बजे यहाँ टेम्परेचर होता है 40, 42, 43, उस समय पूरा गर्म हो जाता था, लेकिन वो फिर भी खड़ा रहता था 12, 1 बजे तक। मैं उसको बोलता चल जाके थोड़ा रेस्ट कर ले अब, लेकिन वो बोलता था बस थोड़ा सा और गुरुजी, थोड़ा सा और कर लूँ उसके बाद में चलूँगा। तो वो थोड़ा सा जो और था ना, वो थोड़ा सा आज उसको वहाँ लेके गया।
This was the time when Saurabh's coach suggested to his family that they buy a personal pistol for Saurabh. But buying a pistol was easier said than done.
पिस्टल 2.25 लाख रुपए की आई थी और हमें कर्ज लेकर वो पिस्टल उसको दिला दी, और पिस्टल दिलाने के बाद में उसमें अपने जहाँ भी वो गया जिसमें गया में उसका मेडल अच्छा पड़ा।
Saurabh started his international career at the 2016 ISSF Junior World Cup and won a silver at the Asian Championship in Tehran that same year. Then, proving his ability in 2018, Saurabh also became the youngest Indian shooter to win a gold medal in the Asian Games. In the same year, he also won a gold medal at the Asian Olympic Games, along with a trio of golds in 10-meter air pistol competition, team competition and mixed team 10-meter pistols golds at the Youth Olympic Games. Along with winning 2 individual World Cup golds in 2019, Saurabh also bagged all 4 ISSF World Cups in mixed events and also confirmed his claim to the Tokyo Olympics.
He is not just satisfied कि हाँ मेरा अच्छा score हो गया and that is enough. He comes back, he says, okay, these were the problems, how can we sort it out? He has that desire to improve.
With the untiring cooperation of Sports Authority of India and TOPS, today Saurabh is spending all his time in preparation for the Tokyo Olympics.
जो मुझे सिखाया गया है मेरे गुरु ने, मेरे कोच ने, बस उसी का मुझे बेस्ट देना है।
With his simplicity and his precise aim being his greatest strengths, his eyes are set on Tokyo. Saurabh Kumar, who has won more than 60 gold medals, is the hope of 130 million Indians for the Olympics. Sports Desk, DD India.
In French Open men's singles, German six-seed Alexander Zverev advanced to the last four in the tournament for the first time. He defeated Spain's Alejandro Davidovich Fokina. Greek fifth seed Stefanos Tsitsipas showed his superior clay court quality against Russian rival Daniil Medvedev to reach the semi-finals. Tsitsipas sealed the win 6-3, 7-6, 7-5 in 2 hours 19 minutes. So those were some sports updates. Back to you, Gautam.
And that's all we had time for the moment as far as Midday Prime is concerned. But do keep catching the latest on the improving situation in the country as far as COVID-19 second wave is concerned, where lockdowns are being relaxed in different parts of the country in different gradations and different phases. Stay tuned to DD News and DD India.